BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Black Box Ned 88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. Well, I hope that everybody saw that little plug segment that we did earlier talking about the 2020 election. It just had some links to share in the description box, but hope you guys saw that here on Black Box Online Radio. And now moving on to today's subject about the Zodiac killer. We're going to be talking about the suspect, Richard Gaikowski, that we haven't mentioned too much about him recently. And I noticed that several comments were coming in very recently, I should say, about Richard Gaikowski and some of the things about just Gyke being the Zodiac in general. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to do a Q&A on this specific subject and this specific suspect as well. So let's get right to it. The first one comes to us from Andrew WVA. And this was talking about a comment that I made that I said I wasn't familiar with Eddie and the Gaikowski crowd. And who are these people? And Andrew writes that Eddie and the Gaikowski crowd refers to Eddie Barsh, a frequent contributor to ZodiacKiller.com. Previously, I recommended his article that effectively debunked Gaikowski's trip to Ireland. And there is a link that has been provided here by Andrew. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. And I did get a chance to read through that. First and foremost, if you guys have anything that you would like to share in the comment section, please share any links that you have about the Zodiac killers, serial killers, any subject, any whatever we're talking about. I want to read your stuff. And there's some things here in this post written by Eddie Barsh 92, and this is on Tapa Talk. Is it pronounced Tapa Talk or Tapa Talk? I always seem to have mixed feelings about that one. But there's several things that are in this article, and the first thing that I would say is that Richard Gaikowski is very famous for working at the Knickerbocker News, as well as the Good Times. He worked in the newspaper business for a while, and then he went on to work for a movie theater. He is a suspect that has received a lot of attention on the internet because of a particular individual named Tom Voigt, who was promoting him on ZodiacKiller.com. But the thing to say about Gaikowski is that I'm not sure exactly when it started, but some people began to put forward this thing on the internet saying that Gaikowski couldn't be the Zodiac killer because he wouldn't have been present in the country at the time of the Lake Herman Road murders on December 20th of 1968. And they're saying that where was he? He was in Ireland. And in both Ireland and crossing the border into Northern Ireland, he was covering the events there, once again working in the newspaper business as a reporter. And the things to say about that one are that not only did he have some published article from January of 69, meaning that he most likely was in Ireland and Northern Ireland for all of the fall of 1968, but also that Ken Narlow even witnessed Gaikowski's passport and saw that he was out of the country at that time. Now, this is another internet rumor. I heard that Tom Voigt had been backing away from Lake Herman Road. I never heard this from Tom Voigt directly, but that as an explanation that was provided was that Tom Voigt was saying that maybe Lake Herman Road wasn't genuine Zodiac killer activity, and that perhaps if indeed Gaikowski were the Zodiac killer, that he just took credit for it. That would also explain the very large gap from Lake Herman Road on December 20th of 68 to Blue Rock Springs, the next shooting on July 4th of 1969. So what do we have going on here in this article? Okay, some of the points that I guess let's just read the foreword. During a period of a few months, people were investigating Richard Gaikowski's involvement, and they even got in touch with a local historian. Upon doing so, the local historian named Damien was dismayed, confused, and utterly appalled at how historically inaccurate Gyke's article was. And they want to look at several pieces of information that debunk the claims that were made by Gaikowski in his articles from Ireland. So something to say about that. There have been reports of people who have been busted for writing things where they say they're in other countries. Paul Avery even debunked a guy who said that he was in China with Richard Nixon, and it turned out he was in California. I mean, that's not unheard of. But when it comes to Richard Gaikowski, I think that the trip to Ireland is, it's not even really the tip of the iceberg. I mean, it's it might be somewhat valuable to have those particular types of discussions, but I think that there are other ways in which we can go about this particular issue, because our next comment is coming into us from Jamie Hendrickson, who says something that Gyke was an army medic, and both of the victims survived the Lake Berryessa stabbing on September 27th of 69. If they had been stabbed by an army medic, they would not have been left alive. And we're saying that both victims survived. Cecilia Shepard would go on to pass away 2 days later in the hospital. I mean, they were not found dead. They did not arrive dead on arrival. And Cecilia Shepard even provided witness descriptions of the perpetrator at Lake Berryessa. So the final line of this comment is, Gyke wasn't the Zodiac. What do you make of that? That's something that we should really be discussing right now, because I think that it's somewhat valuable to have that type of conversation. I mean, maybe the stuff about Ireland will get a final certifiable answer one way or another, and I definitely could expect that Gyke was a shady reporter. But, I mean, Gyke famously was an army medic, so would he have been able to murder the victims more effectively at Lake Berryessa? One thing that you guys have been saying a lot in the comments section recently is that believing that the victims were intended to survive the Lake Berryessa stabbing. I personally don't believe that, based on how they were stabbed. Brian Hartnell was stabbed 7 times. Cecilia Shepard was stabbed 10 times. I mean, if the victims were meant to survive, or at least one victim was meant to survive, I think that the perpetrator would have gone about that in a different way. But the reason why people are saying this in the comments section is, if it weren't for Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard surviving, as we said, Cecilia would pass away 2 days later, then we wouldn't have the description of the Lake Berryessa hood with the symbol on it, with the clip-on sunglasses. We wouldn't have that famous illustration of the Zodiac holding a gun with the knife in the sheath. We wouldn't have any of that material at all. It would be a stabbing, and there would be this message on the car door, on Brian Hartnell's Carmen Ghia. So, I mean, that's why some people are saying, I mean, the Zodiac really seemed to have a lot of methodical and well-prepared, measures that were taken at Lake Berryessa, particularly in the way that the hood was crafted. It's not just putting on a ski mask or doing something to disguise his face. And, like, the hood, I mean, was very well put together, and especially they even included the Zodiac killer symbol. So, did the Zodiac want one of the victims or both of the victims to survive so they could tell the story of it? If you're going to do that, then I think the victims would have been stabbed in a much less harmful way, because Cecilia Shepard died from it. I mean, but what the comment that Jamie was making wasn't even about that. He was saying that it was something to the contrary. He's saying that the victims would have been instantly murdered if they had been stabbed by an army medic. With an army medic's knowledge of anatomy, the victims would not have been attacked this way. He could have left them dead if he wanted to. Knowing about things like the jugular vein, the carotid artery, he would have known what was going on. But there's another famous thing that we should talk about, and that is the fact that Gyke is found in the cipher. We had a couple comments come in about this recently, and some people are saying that Gyke's name is found multiple times in the cipher, and if, like, you have Gyke in the cipher, is that just what that is, hiding in plain sight? We're going to an older comment from Felix Zero, who says, maybe Gyke in the cipher is just a cheeky way of nodding at his last name without spelling it correctly, and because he spelled it Gyke. And some people just think that that is the whole solution, that, like, that's like the thing about the Zodiac bragging about his identity in the ciphers. That's just what you're supposed to look for, Gyke, Gyke. I think that goes more in line with what we said about the trip to Ireland. Maybe we'll get a better explanation for that. Maybe we won't. A lot of people have their names in the 340 cipher. Also have a whole wave of comments coming in about people encouraging me to look at Earl Van Best again, because they say that Earl Van Best is in the cipher. The Zodiac was not Gyke and Earl Van Best, to the best of my knowledge, or at least not in the way that they're arguing and presenting their case. What about Tony Tola found in the cipher? What about Kelly Marshall's solution revealing Xenophon Anthony? I mean, I think that And this isn't simply just, my own observation. I was reading this on one site when somebody said that it might even just be ineffective to use some of these cipher solutions when someone's like, oh, I found a new way to pull a name out of the cipher. I think we're going to need much more than that to get some definitive answers. One thing, though, that I would be quite curious about what you guys would think is what you see here is Richard Gaikowski's mugshot, and I believe Gaikowski was intentionally arrested as part of a journalistic article, and the whole thing was set up. But I would be quite curious, do you think that Gyke matches the physical descriptions? The first time I ever learned about Richard Gaikowski was from a YouTuber that said he matches the composite sketch perfectly, and I was looking through several other photos of Richard Gaikowski, and one of the things that I notice about him that is quite different than the composite of the Zodiac Killer, Gyke seems to have a much broader face. His face doesn't seem to come down in the narrow areas that the composite sketch would have had. But that's like a totally superficial observation. I'm not an anatomist. I'm certainly not a doctor or anything that can talk about, like the elevated cheekbones or something and give you any precise answer. I mean, superficial observation, but I think that Gyke, especially in the photos of him closer to 1969, appear to be very wide in the face, and his hairline seems to be quite different than that of the Zodiac Killer composite. However, another thing that we should say is the photo of Gyke that maybe you've seen where he is like sitting down and laughing, and he has the big smile on his face. That one, his face doesn't look as broadened, but it's almost like, I didn't mean to be harsh, but it's just like a solid rectangle sometimes when you look at the older photos of Richard Gaikowski. Another comment that came into us recently was encouraging me to have another look at Richard Gaikowski's handwriting. And I have to say, though, when it comes to handwriting, I'm really not convinced that Gyke's handwriting is a solid match. And I say this for a couple reasons, because at first, I was dead set that his handwriting was 100%, not even close. And I was looking at it again because somebody encouraged me to do so. And I was like, all right, maybe I shouldn't have said it's not 100%, even kind of close, that it's absolutely not the author of the Zodiac Killer letters. But, in having a closer examination, I'm just not seeing it. If you look at Richard Gaikowski's handwriting compared to that of the Zodiac Killer, I think that Gyke is a lot neater, and the Zodiac Killer was much sloppier. I don't notice the extreme tilts to the side that are present in the Zodiac Killer letters, but I'm not a handwriting expert. I'm just somebody that looks at this stuff, and that's just my stance on the subject. But you can definitely see which way I'm leaning when it comes to Richard Gaikowski as a suspect. But let's go on to our next comment, which comes to us from Zombie Goat. Gaikowski was the Zodiac. So Zombie Goat writes, Gaikowski was the Zodiac. He never left the country. His passport was found and confirmed this. Also in the ciphers, the abbreviated name Gyke can be seen multiple times. He was also committed to an insane institution in Napa Valley. Gaikowski was also involved with Darlene Ferrin in some way. I say this because Darlene's sister said Richard Gaikowski killed her and was stalking her. There is mountains of evidence against Gaikowski, who never provided an alibi. Also look up Gaikowski's handwriting and the Zodiac's handwriting. That was that thing that I mentioned earlier. Keep in mind, Gaikowski is the only person matched to the ciphers by a handwriting expert, stated they need more examples to make an exact match. The description of the Zodiac is an exact match for Gaikowski. Since he was a writer and editor, him being at the crime scene would also not look suspicious. Also, Paul Stine's funeral, Gaikowski was identified as being at it by Stine's family. What I can say about the funeral, let's look at that final sentence. Also, Paul Stine's funeral, Gaikowski was identified as being at it by Stine's family. That's actually the first time that I have heard that, but I will take your word for it, Zombie Goat. Thank you for the comment. What I can say is that there does appear to be a geographical connection between Richard Gaikowski and Paul Stine. What is it exactly? Gaikowski ran a switchboard that was on the same street where Paul Stine lived. So, California is a small world, and we do see interconnections between these people here. But a very big comment here. As far as the passport issue, I know I said at the beginning that I just read on some website 2 years ago that Ken Narlow had witnessed Gaikowski's passport and said that he had been out of the country in December of '68. But someone else had left a comment about a year ago saying something very similar. They're like, people have gone back and investigated, and they were like, Gaikowski never owned a passport. It's all bunk. It's all just deception. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, who do I know? How do I know what to believe? I mean, who do I know to trust when you're just going off of these different things that people are sharing with you, as well as reading it, from the person who claims that they've uncovered this information. So I think that maybe we could go about it in a different way, but that is definitely not the first time I've heard this, that Gaikowski never left the country. And but this one says it in a different way, that his passport was found and confirmed this. But yeah, definitely we have the abbreviations of Gyke. That's very famously understood. And that could be something. Gyke was indeed committed to a mental institution. And as far as the connection, I mean, not mentioning Darlene Ferrin's sister, Darlene Ferrin's sister, family, they may not have been the most reliable in terms of helping to solve the cases, particularly Darlene Ferrin's sister, Pam. And I was talking about this in our upload when we did one on Darlene Ferrin conspiracy theories. And we're like, why is Darlene Ferrin always the epicenter of this? Why does everything come back to Darlene Ferrin? And she was the first Zodiac killer victim who I learned about. I learned her name first out of all of them because people talk about her very frequently. And, somebody even provided this to me in the comment section about Pam Huckabee, Darlene Ferrin's sister Pam, that would have talked about her a lot, as well as Darlene Ferrin also worked at Terry's restaurant, and it's so easy to establish a connection there with somebody. They can be like, okay, well, this person, was a frequent guest in the restaurant. This person was known to live nearby. This person worked in a restaurant, like Louis Myers, who worked as a busboy when Darlene Ferrin was a server. That's also very easy to set up. But also when it comes to Darlene's family, they might not always share everything 100% because they might not even know everything about Darlene's activities. And that's another thing that I have heard about Darlene Ferrin, is that she disappeared for 6 months and she just did not tell her family what she did, where she was going, who she was with, all of that. And I think that ties into some other things about the merchant marine theory, that she was going around the world with this merchant marine. And that goes into some things like the tar box confession, perhaps allegedly, that there was this guy who was supporting Darlene Ferrin financially, and then she just kind of gave him the cold shoulder, blanked him, the old-fashioned style of ghosting him, and he got very mad about that, so he retaliated. And perhaps the murders of Betty Lou Jensen and Cecilia Ann Shepard were also connected to that situation in some way, or this person just really had it out for women, and the male victims, the men were just getting them out of the way. But that gets away from Richard Gaikowski. That's just a different theory in the Zodiac killer mystery. So, well, thank you, though, for this very well-written comment, Zombie Goat. Now, what I can say, though, is I was listening to the Stones Unturned podcast last week, and Thomas Henry Horan restated something that he has said in the past, but he restated it in a different way when he said that he composed a short list of suspects for writing the letters in the Zodiac killer mystery. And I've heard him say this before, but he said that Richard Gaikowski was very close to the top of his short list of suspects for writing the Zodiac killer letters. And Thomas Horan always believed from the beginning of his investigation that multiple people committed the crimes, or that there was info in the letters that the real killer couldn't have known about. We won't really go down that pathway because we just finished our Zodiac killer hoax theory open discussion, which is available here on this channel, Black Box Online Radio. We assembled the playlist. But the thing to say about that is, I didn't know that he had thought so highly of Richard Gaikowski as a suspect for the letter writing. But of course, Thomas Horan went with Hal Snook instead, saying that Hal Snook's handwriting is a better match. I have to say, though, Hal Snook's handwriting does appear to be a better match for the Zodiac killer letters, and Don Chaney might be up there with, being an absolute better match for the handwriting to the Zodiac killer letters, much more so than Richard Gaikowski's, I have to admit. But, with Richard Gaikowski as Zodiac killer suspect, Tom Voigt was promoting him heavily, and it appears that Tom Voigt is backing away from some of those claims, and, I would really like to know if that was true, that Tom Voigt had, said that Lake Herman Road was perhaps not even genuine Zodiac killer activity. Is it just a way to force his theory onto the situation, or to force the theory involving a suspect that he had promoted for so long? Now, as you can hear the way that I'm laying this out, I guess you'd say I don't believe that Gaikowski was the Zodiac killer, and I'm being quite clear about that. Sometimes we just try and explore the issue. I definitely would think that it would be valuable to learn if he either did not ever own a passport, or that his passport, had no stamps from Ireland or Northern Ireland, and that's all just some fabrication somewhere along the way. And that, I mean, because we can see the article that he has written when it says that he is on the ground in Ireland, but once again, people aren't always truthful with those things, not saying that Gyke was or wasn't. But I'd be quite curious to know what you guys think about the claim that I made about the physical descriptions. Does it appear that Gyke is his hairline doesn't match the Zodiac's, as well as he has a much more rectangular face than than the other physical descriptions, as well as I think that there are a lot of very odd circumstances involving Gaikowski. I think Gaikowski was a very quirky guy. However, I haven't seen something overwhelmingly that pushed me to think that he would be the Zodiac killer or have any involvement with this. And that was another comment that we had that came in as well, because I believe that one was from Michael McJenkins, who said something that if Gaikowski were indeed involved in the Zodiac killer mystery, then it would have had to have been somebody else would have been working with him. There's no way that he would have been able to commit all of these crimes by himself. So, what do you have to say about Richard Gaikowski as a Zodiac killer? And, I mean, if you're going to try and debunk the trip to Ireland, please, by all means, do it. I would love to just get a definitive answer on that. However, I think we're going to need a little bit more than that. What do you think? If you have anything to share, please write it in the comment section below. If you like this upload, you can hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you're welcome to do so. But most importantly, let's drop some comments below and continue the discussion in the section below. That's all for me now. Until next time.